hours a day, 10 hours a week, I would read more, I would sleep more, I would work on my novel more.
If I only needed to work 2 hours per day, I would spend a lot more time with my partner. I would play a lot more football, and I would be far more politically involved.
You're like an art wanker.
Man each, everyone push on, Ted. Yes, Ted. Ted. And again. Go ball, Ted. Play like that, play that down. Go ball, Ted. Three left. Yeah, we've got to keep it simple. Cross the knee, like that. Yes. Watch the overlap, Steve. Go ball, Ted. Play on. John is left. Great turn.
If I only had to work for 2 hours a day, I would love to spend more time doing yoga. I'd love to spend more time with people, not just getting to and from work and preparing for work.
I will go cycling. I would also love to listen to music with friends.
I'm the chef right now, and if I only had to work 10 hours a week, the activities which I would do would be walking, meeting with friends.
What he
swimming. If I'm not near the sea, which is my preference, swimming in the sea, I would swim in a swimming pool. Also, I would like to travel maybe 2 hours a day. I'd rather do 10 hours in one day and have the rest of the week off. I don't know if that would be allowed.
Playing my guitar, listening to music and dancing.
Also do more sculpture and painting, which I haven't managed to do much lately.
To be in the garden, to travel more, to see my family in Ireland more.
Straps around them and a GoPro on their chest.
Really?
Not the ones in the place we were
Must
in.
be loads of fighting
in
in
other
Kilkenny.
places. I'd imagine. Well, stags and stuff.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Stags and that.
From what we saw.
Will I put milk in, or do you want to do it yourselves?
Yes, please.
How much?
A little bit.
A little.
I would become a fantastic chef. I'm not a bad chef, but I would cook amazing meals, even more amazing meals. Because I like cooking. I like experimenting with foods, and I think I've definitely learned to play the guitar or another instrument. I really would love to do that. I would do more acting because I love acting. Stand-up comedy. I would like to spend more time doing that. More time with my girlfriend. Doing the usual things you do with a girlfriend. Walking around. I love walking around London, all the parks, enjoying all the films, all the theatre.
more love and affection. I'd also cook more and focus more on inventing things in my kitchen.
Oh, we go, Mr. Hero. What are you doing? Here, oi! Where you go? We're going. I know.
Reading and writing and doing some political work as well.
I could have a siesta whenever I wanted. That'd be so nice, especially in the summer.
And I would also do more origami.
I would spend a lot of my time singing. I would learn a lot of other different instruments, because that's a lot of time that you're freeing up. Working 2 hours per day, that's a lot of downtime.
Helping other people as well. I think, you know, helping people who kind of maybe need more help than maybe I do.
I would learn so much more. So I would learn, I've always wanted to learn carpentry, to make tables and chairs. I've always wanted to learn how to sort of break down meat properly, almost like learn butchery, which is a bit savage, but I love meat, so I'd love to learn how to do it. I'd love to learn a new language.
And cleaning. Yeah, I have to say my house is a bit messy and it will be a bit tidier, which would be quite nice. Yeah.
Only need to work 2 hours a day. I would rather have them like this 10 hours a week, just make them in 2 days, for instance, 5 hours 2 days, and then have the other day free, because 2 hours is kind of short time to get like effective in your productivity. And what I would do, I would do things that provide me personal satisfaction and personal growth, like sports and playing music, all things that are per se are work as well, but would not be just to get my salary or my wage. Eventually, having more time, it means you could reduce your stress levels. But if you don't know what to do with this time, you're actually increasing your stress level. So I think at the beginning, people would be terrified, even scared, and eventually they would find their ways to spend this extra time in personal growth and giving back to the community, for instance, or involved in politics. The important thing is that with 2 hours, everyone could have enough to live with.
I think if you ask the government today, would they reduce the working week? They'd definitely say no. I think if they do say no, then people have to show how strong you are collectively. If you campaign for something, if you're visible on the streets, if you make posters and banners and physically go out marching, I think you get noticed and you put it on the agenda, and then they have to respond. Because they are elected, they have to represent what the people want.
So if this was a proposal that was denied, we'd actually have to show them what most of the nation or even the world actually gets up to after we finish work. We're tired. You know, there's barely enough time to cook a full meal from scratch, let alone watch a full movie. So the fact is, we'd show to them how how exploited we kind of are, because we're working harder and more than we are actually playing and having fun.
The dictator in Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, is being taken away from power after 30 years. So that in itself, what's happened in Egypt, what's happened in Algeria, can show you that those in power can say no, and those in power can deny you a right for a long, long time. But eventually they will get what's coming to them, and eventually they will have to face justice, and eventually they will have to bend to the will of the people. So this isn't to say that we have to change things immediately, or that they'll change overnight, or that they'll change within one generation. But eventually, if what's good for people is proven, the people will get what they want. It may not happen quickly, but it will eventually happen. So they can say no, bosses can say no to a shorter working day. When people realise the benefits, I think they will begin to change very quickly.
In some ways things are going backwards. It's almost like going back to the 19th century. People actually working longer hours, especially in Britain. Casualisation is becoming a increasing problem. Yeah, it's frightening and worrying.
We are limited because of the commitment. We have to work 8 hours a day on average, and that reduces our energy and free time to explore our creativity.
My dad actually worked far too many hours when I was growing up. He used to work at Heathrow Airport, and he used to he was a shift worker, and he would work mornings or afternoons or nights, 8 hours, but often he would do overtime. So when I was growing up, I didn't really see him that much, to be honest, which is it was kind of sad. And the other thing is, he was always, even when he did that job, then he always he did other jobs on top of that. He had 2 other part-time jobs as a gardener. It was always like running around for get more money.
For example, I've got colleagues that are working 12 hours a day still, even though it's an 8-hour contract.
That's my mum. He had less time.
She used to work a lot too.
Yeah, she used to, quite a bit. She used to work as a hairdresser, and then she worked in a factory, sort of doing circuit boards. It wasn't that brilliantly paid, and their life was quite hard. They were kind of always struggling, always struggling for money, but they were very loving towards us, and they did their best. Like my mum didn't drive for a long time, and my dad did drive, so if he wasn't around, we sometimes couldn't go on a little trip somewhere or whatever. It was more difficult. So yeah, it was just it just felt like a family.
I think we have to go on strike, take to the streets, fight hard to get our 2-hour per day right. We also should implement laws to regulate these huge media corporations that respond to a very specific economic and political interest, and this would help us get this 2-hour per day working environment.
First of all, there needs to be a lot of people demanding it and really fighting for it somehow, claiming it, unionizing or something like this. And second of all, it could be achieved thanks to technology allowing an increase in productivity.
I think it's important to explain first of all what surplus value is, okay? Well, a worker, for example, will work for a whole month, which is between my 2 hands, and they will get paid about this much of the time and effort in which they spent. In the rest, all the other stuff which they produced, which they made, is stolen by the bosses, by the companies, and this is surplus value, that bit which is stolen, because that's what the system we live under, capitalism, is based on.
I've always had a secure contract, like the security that I have from knowing I get holidays and I have a contract and I am protected.
If we achieve the 2-hour per day work situation, we should get that with all the rights. So that would include holidays, pension contributions, and it should be just as it is now for the 8-hour contract.
to achieve shorter hours, 2 a day or 10 per week. But it's going to be a lot of community action and protesting, I think, and really fighting and campaigning so that you get that shorter week.
So I think the way to achieve that would be to explain to people, to have kind of a central maybe union or body that can explain to people the benefits of working less, and how by working less doesn't necessarily mean that the economy is worse off. I think people would become inspired to do that. I think certain jobs, office-based jobs, would begin to react to that positively.
In terms of the unions, it's important to start a campaign to try and push for reduction in the hours you've got to work in a day, and also keeping the same wages that we have as well, because our wages will be reduced if we don't push for that. And to start a campaign where you get other workers, other members of the union to join and support, to try and push the leadership of the union to try and accept the campaign, and also try and create a bigger campaign where people get involved. And if the union leader rejects this campaign, then you should move to try and get him removed from the union and bring in someone from the campaign to try and push for this campaign.
So why don't we just take this over? And then if we were doing this, you know, we're working for ourselves. We're not working for someone else, so we don't have to work so many hours anymore, because we don't need to. You know, it's not making profit for just a few people. Yeah, and then suddenly, of course, we see all the benefits.
It sounds very nice to have those 2 hours, but there is a real problem. Those 2 hours would not be given to you with the same wages by the bosses, because they have their own interests. Their own interest is to steal your money, like I said before, surplus value. So their interest is that. Your interest is reduce your hours, but keeping the same wages. So that's where the two interests are coming up, fighting against each other. The only way that that we'd be able to get away from surplus value is for the workers to basically take over those companies and those businesses and run them on a different way, a way that actually it's not run on profit and on surplus value profit.
There's always resistance, but it needs to be organised, it needs to be collective, and that's the point. That's when we can actually really start like shaking things up.
Is for the workers around the world to stand up to business and take ownership of businesses and of companies and of essentially government in a revolution.
There's so much research that shows that people who work fewer hours, like the French, who have like the least amount of working hours in Europe, are actually much more productive. So not only would people be able to use their time more for personal choices, but in the long run, in terms of labor, they'd be more, there'd be better outcomes.
There would be no such thing as a rush hour, because there's no one time to be at work and one time to leave work. And I think people would begin to think a lot more and begin to sort of feel a lot more. I think they'd become more empathetic. I think they'd be able to relate to each other a lot more, because they have time to do so. They have time to listen, time to understand. And I think people's attention spans would get longer.
People would be completely different. People would just be so much happier, more relaxed, smiling more. We'd have more time for everything, you know. There'd be less road rage and all those horrible things you see on the streets. More time for friends, more time for family, more time for fun time.
For people who have children or who have grandchildren, you know, spending time at work when they can be with their kids and grandkids is time that's stolen away from them. So if we can give them back that time, they would be far more satisfied. And I think between the generations, so between grandparents, parents and children, I think we'd see relations become a lot stronger.
If there's a lot of work to do within a set amount of time, then it would make sense that maybe we need assistance or a larger team, which in the long run could be better because that means that more people are being employed.
But if everyone only worked 2 hours, it means you'd have to work a different set of 2 hours. So a lot more people would be employed. So I think the level of unemployment would drop significantly.
Personal satisfaction would definitely be maintained by having like a daily responsibility for work. That contributes to personal satisfaction without overtaking someone's life.
What do you mean about that?
Like, you know how like work sometimes becomes like the only thing in our lives? That's what I meant.
Mental fatigue will probably not be a thing, if not, you know, a very, very small percentage, without a shadow of a doubt. It would be amazing for the mental capacity of everything. You'd have the energy.